Okay, good morning and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the fifth and last FinTech Friday session for 2021. My name is Karila Kilian, and I'm pleased to be moderating the event. Before we start, just a quick reminder to keep your microphones on mute and your videos off unless you're the speaker, and to rename yourselves to include your name and institution name. We also encourage you to ask questions and engage with the speakers as much as possible by using the chat function. So with us today, we have an amazing panel of investors and fintechs to discuss a very important issue of gender lens investing and investing in female founders. Alliance research in 2020, how fintechs can profit from the trillion-dollar female economy, found that while fintechs are well placed to tap into the women's market, they are largely overlooking it. The problem begins very early on, with fintechs not breaking down their total addressable market by sex. And then this is coupled with a tendency to rely on the assumption that the men are the early adopters, and then driven by the desire to grow that user base and really capture investor interest, their products and services become designed with men in mind. And by the time most fintechs reach maturity, they are well on their way to becoming caught in a self-reinforcing loop of catering primarily to male users. And so the research found that fintechs would pay more attention to the women's market earlier on if investors had an investment thesis showing the scale of the opportunity and encouraged fintechs to cater to both sexes equally. Investors greatly influence the fintech ecosystem by providing funding and guidance to help companies scale. Yet, half of the VCs we surveyed for our research were aware that men and women differed on access and use of financial behavior, and almost half interviewed said that having research showing that women are underserved and have different needs would help their invest fintechs and the investors themselves to examine the potential of the women's market and apply a gender lens to serving the women's market better. Today's objective is to highlight the importance of integrating this gender lens into the investment thesis. We will share some insights on women's market business case and to encourage more investors and fintechs to capture this opportunity. Finally, we will also explore the need to invest in fintechs with female founders who actually report that fundraising and investor bias is their biggest challenge. So first, without taking more time, I'd like to do a quick round of introductions. What I want to do is actually, I want to ask my speakers to please introduce themselves and their companies they represent in 1 minute. Maybe Rachel, we start with you.
All right, well, thank you. And it's really great to be here. And it's really nice to talk about the subject. I think the issue of kind of female founders and how they get investment is super important and something that we spend a lot of time talking about at the time. So I am the Chief Growth Officer of Time. We're a digital bank group headquartered in Singapore. And we have our first bank is Time Bank in South Africa, and we've participated in lots of financial alliance for women events. And our second bank will be opening in 2022, which is Go Time in the Philippines. And we last week announced a major capital raise where Tencent and CDC both came in as new shareholders for Time. And today we took the first step to actually invest in a smaller fintech. It's a seed company or even pre-seed company called Tribe, and based out of Hong Kong, that is focusing mainly on women and female entrepreneurs led by a woman founder. So we're really, really excited about this special news today too.
Perfect timing for it, by the way, Rachel. Thank you. Right before the session. Deepika, on to you.
Hi, everyone. Good evening from India. My name is Deepika. I am the co-founder and COO at a company called Basis. Basis is India's financial services destination for women. We've built a community of over 100,000 women where they get on our app. They learn everything they need to know about managing their money better. They interact with the community, asking us any questions they may have about investing, insurance, their salaries, negotiations, and all of that stuff. And we handhold them through the entire investing process as well. I've been in the space of wealth management and financial technology in India for over now close to 14 years now. My co-founder also comes with experience in in fintech, both in India and in the US. So she worked at Goldman Sachs and at Square in the US. And we got together because we identified a huge gap when it came to fintech, financial services for women, the urban working women in India. And hence we built the solution with Basis about 2 years ago.
Perfect. Thank you, Deepika. Karen?
Hey everyone, my name is Karen Conte. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Angel Hub. Angel Hub is a regulated tech investment platform. So what we do is that we vet and we do the due diligence on growth stage tech companies to invest in them and to provide them more capital power through our network of professional investors. So we invest in a tech company from Series A up to a unicorn level that are here scaling in the region in Asia.
Perfect. Thank you. Jennifer?
Hi, I'm Jennifer Tang Lo. I'm a serial exited entrepreneur, and I'm an investor for my own family office, which I set up after my second exit that was a unicorn. And after that, I felt like, I really had to pay it forward. I've always been a hybrid investor and entrepreneur. I always have several things going at the same time, but I think it's really important. To kind of make sure that we're not only making sure we're leaning in and doing more than talking the talk, but that we all have to walk the walk and make sure we're inspiring others to do so. So the first thing I started doing after I made my exits was investing in other emerging fund managers, as well as women founders. So 70 to 80% of our portfolio is led by women or co-led by women. It's something that's very, very important to me because I think we need to empower each other to give back to the ecosystem collectively and make sure that all of us are leaning in. So one of my projects right now is that I have a genclub.com where I try to make sure that other women can learn to be better at investors. I think you have to have both sides of the coin to really succeed. You have to know what works in the market. You have to know what's going to provide enough buy-in for not just a sophisticated consumer who's voting with their wallet, but the people who are becoming and joining and gaining their wings in the ranks of angel investing. And I think there's something very powerful to be a part of a tribe of women who are helping other women and actually helping other women. One of our mandates, in addition to ESG, so we've invested across climate, we've invested in metaverses. I think we try to espouse a collaborative attitude over a competitive attitude. So in that regard, I was formerly an actress and a model, and I worked at a hedge fund before Me Too, came to Asia to get my MBA, and I stayed. And I have 3 children. I'm a millennial mom of 3. I had my 3rd kid right before the pandemic broke out. Yeah, earlier we got up to a slightly late start because I had to go check on the last one. I have just launched or about to launch a hedge fund with my best friend from business school called ACE Investment Management. She is the only girl I know who has done World Poker Series twice. She's really upped my poker game. And I think as women, we all really need to grab a seat at the table, whether it's at the poker table or whether it's in the boardroom. Thanks.
Thank you, Jennifer. And finally, Misbah, if we can hear from you.
Hi, everybody. Wow, fantastic. I'm already inspired by
Misbah, you're breaking out a bit. Maybe if you turn your video off or something, and and the volume up a bit, it seems to be down.
Better?
It's a bit better.
Okay. If it keeps going like this, I can change internet connection. But I haven't. Is it bad right now?
Oh, no, Misbah, actually, maybe you should try logging off, logging on again, and I come back to you. Okay, so until we get Misbah back and introduction, maybe we go ahead and start this session with maybe Jennifer. As an impact investor, are there specific attributes you look for when investing?
So I think impact, just like people are like throwing around the word crypto, Bitcoin, it can't be a throwaway word. So I look for impact in every sense. Like I look to make sure that the founders, the vision, the values are aligned, that they're really looking to create impact and not just something for the bottom line. I think nowadays we're all kind of in the same boat. So impact can't be an afterthought. I was doing the impact investing before it became cool. So I think what I look for when I look for impactful tech is to make sure that it's truly innovative. It's not something that's just like, oh, that's interesting. It could be a cool fad. That it is universally impactful. Like it lifts up humanity in some way. If it's like something like, oh, this is an app that helps me like store my look and then declutter my other apps that are, you know, it really has to move the needle. And help humanity in some way. So that's what I look for in impact. So some of our investments in impact has spanned from like food tech, like Green Monday, Green Common, Omnipork, to Climate X. Right now, one of our favorite metaverses, which I discovered about a year ago, is actually a multiverse. And one of my friends, he co-invested. He's the head of Animoca. They are also closely tied with Angel Hub. And Karen and them. But what I like about them is that they came to light because they were part of the Stop Asian Hate movement, as well as the Black Lives Matter movement. So they had a lot of grassroots support early on, and they were truly community building. And then they gained even more attention because we were able to raise a lot of money for COVID relief. One thing I didn't mention is that I'm a concert pianist by training. So I came back out of retirement during the pandemic and raised a few million for COVID relief, women charities, and other things. And then I noticed that the companies that really supported those initiatives and didn't just wait until they were profitable to do so are the ones that I tend to support long term. So I think impact can never be an afterthought. It has to be baked into the business model as well as into the psyches of the founders and holders.
Okay, and to support you in making that decision, do you, for example, also ask for sex disaggregated data to see whether it's also impacting the women's market or a specific niche underserved market? Yes.
Exactly, that's such important. So basically, we actually we invested in. This is so funny because so we actually, one of our investments was a cancer vaccine, which IPO'd earlier this year, and it was a secondary investment. Then we topped up in the Series C for the parent company, and they're doing other moonshots like Alzheimer's and heart disease and everything. And then all along, I said, like, we will top up our investment if you have a woman, like a really strong woman there. And then they hired a woman COO right away. So I met them before they even like started doing those investments, and before, like, you know, famous celebrities like Uma Thurman and other people started co-investing in there. So they did that, and they cared because I had lost relatives to cancer, 2 aunts to cancer. I have 3 relatives currently battling end-stage cancer right now. And it was really important for me that we didn't just look at human cancer. So we actually also doubled down and invested in a pet cancer company. Reason being is that a lot of millennials and women were opting out of motherhood, but that doesn't mean we aren't mothers to pets or fur babies, right? So I want to make sure that whether we choose motherhood or we don't, that the investments that we look at, better lives for other people, including animals. So, and when we look at the clinical trials, obviously they have to look at the effects on women in pregnancy, etc. You can't just be like, oh, this is a great drug to give, Caucasian men age 40 to 60. I mean, we also have to look at like the different countries that the clinical trials are happening in, make sure that it's happening in like Africa, South America, other places. Because right now, one of the things that we're seeing is vaccine inequity is what's causing the pandemic to prolong even more than it is.
Thank you for that, Jennifer. Misbah, we have you back. I hope the internet will be kinder to us. If we can maybe hear a quick intro, and then I want to ask you my next question.
Sure. I just want to check if you can hear me clearly this time.
Very well. Super clear.
Okay, perfect. I don't know what happened last time. I'm sorry. So I was just saying it's a fantastic company to be in. I'm already inspired by just listening to the introductions of everybody here. So my name is Misbah Naqvi. I lead a VC fund in Pakistan. My co-founder and I are the only women in the VC, leading the VC space in Pakistan. We're the only female-founded fund. We invest in early-stage tech and tech-enabled companies. We've done 8 investments so far, of which 4 of them have been female-founded. So we take a gender lens investing approach. We're not impact per se, but we also believe that there are many different ways to have impact. In a market like Pakistan, if you're focusing on solving big problems, to what Jennifer was saying earlier, that you can actually have a lot of impact. Like, we're not going to invest in a pizza making robot as people would in Silicon Valley. But if you look at fintech, if you look at the opportunities to really impact lives, you can really go very far with your money. So we do take a gender lens approach when we invest. We like holding up women and looking for women, especially while looking for obviously commercial opportunities, being a commercial VC fund. In terms of background, I've been in the finance space for the last 23 years. I've started in corporate banking. I've worked in impact investing. I've also worked for a fintech startup myself. So I've kind of seen different sides of the equation. And my co-founder and partner in the fund actually started Pakistan's first accelerator program for startups 10 years ago. And so she's been working, and I've been on her board of advisors since then. So she's been working with startups directly in the space when really there was no startup space in Pakistan. It was very, very thin, hardly any support system, very bad investors, predatory investing, etc. And we've come a long way as a market. So I'm very excited about what's happening in Pakistan right now, and it's been a crazy ride. And as you can understand, fundraising tends to be the hardest part. We often get discounted because we are women, but we're super proud of our portfolio. One of our portfolio companies, co-founded by a female fintech, called Credit Book, actually just announced a new capital raise with Tiger Global, and this is Tiger's first investment into Pakistan. So it's really very significant in terms of where the market is going, and we couldn't be prouder that it's one of our companies, and that's also female co-founded, which is extra special.
Amazing. Amazing, Misbah. And what I actually, well, you kind of answered the first part of my question that I had for you, which was, do you have a gender lens investing that you make? So that's a yes. But if you do, why do you have one?
Yeah, we just believe it's good. It just makes good economic sense, right? I mean, Pakistan is 50% women. Why would we want to leave out, 50% of the population when you're looking at any product or service? And I think finance is a space where it's challenging for women in any case. So I think for us, if we feel like if we're able to remove some of the obstacles that women often face in accessing finance, that's an important way to clear the path for good women founders to come forward, good opportunities to come forward. And then it's not just for us, it doesn't stop at looking at the right female founders, but it also looks at who are they serving, how are they serving it, how can we play a role getting more people on in the team, for example, how can we help them create policies that are female friendly in terms of maternity leave and childcare support and working from home, potentially remotely, etc. And then of course the female focus in terms of the actual product and service as well. So those are things that we try to do consciously, and we actually have active conversations with our companies in terms of not just gender but diversity as well, in terms of what lens can we use when we're looking at those. I think it makes good business sense, Carol, because I think we know the statistics. We know that women often get discounted because they get discounted by potential investors. So by removing some of the barriers, we can help some of them thrive. And then I think also the reason why we consciously look for good female founders is because if we just look at the funnel, they'll get weeded out just because of the way the numbers work. So there just aren't enough of them. And so we actually make a point of sort of looking for them. Our sister company runs several programs still on the accelerator and incubator side. One of the programs they're running right now is in partnership with the World Bank and the We Raise. It's called We Raise, and with the WeFi initiative to bring more finance to women. And so this is about helping female founders get investment ready and actually focus on supporting them. So I think programs like that are very important for us because we get to play a support role to our sister entity as they're involved in that, but it also gives us access to good pipeline, which otherwise you probably wouldn't find. So I think it just makes good business sense. And if you're launching any product or service, why would you want to just, X out half of that potential target market for yourself?
Exactly. Perfect.
Of course, we also know the statistics that women run and women founded businesses actually return much more on capital on average. than male ones do, or even co-founded ones.
They do. We have 75 members across the globe that actually prove that day in, day out. But Misbah, I just want to build on that. So when you say you really have these discussions with your fintechs and you look for this, do you also encourage them to make sure that they are targeting the female and they are more inclusive in their approach?
Yeah, we absolutely do. I will admit, though, we could do a better job. I think I don't want to posture and say, yeah, we do it all. I think there's a lot that we could do, which we, in terms of benchmarks and really asking the questions around, how their product and services are sort of focused on women. One of our portfolio companies, I'm very proud to say, is not only female founded, but is also women first in terms of being a fintech. They started with what we call committees in Pakistan, which is a ROSCA model. So savings and credit, rotating savings and credit associations, very common in Asia and Africa. More than 40% of women are part of ROSCAs in some way or the other. And this company called Uran actually started by digitizing what's already happening offline, online for these companies. I know their founder also spoke at one of your events a few months ago as well, Halima. And so what they're doing is like they're focusing on women, which are severely underbanked in Pakistan. Only 7% of women in Pakistan actually even have a basic bank account. So we're not even talking access to multiple products and services. And they started with this product, which created a really close relationship with the customer. They're learning a lot about the customer. They have learned over the last couple of years. And now they're building for those customers, for those women, and bringing in new products and services in line with what they see, where they see the gaps. So I think that's one company that's, more than 80% of their customers are female. And they're very wholly and solely female first, and building a neobank from there. With others, I think there's an opportunity to do more, but there's also focus on how we can help them in terms of like access, getting to women, and really including women as part of the way they think about their product and their market.
Thank you, Misbah. Karen, you co-founded Angel Hub, Hong Kong's first SFC-regulated startup investment platform with Karena. So making Angel Hub 100% women-led. Do you make a concerted effort to invest in and support female economy and female-led fintechs? If so, why? And if not, why not?
So we don't make it a priority to invest in female-led company. Our aim is of course to provide capital to promising tech companies without actually discriminating male as well. So sorry for the irony, but what I mean is that what we are looking for first is really great scalable tech business with a great team as well, and with a strong business model, and that looks promising, right? So that's really part of the first criteria. 25% of our portfolio company have a female founder in their team, which I think is great. So although we don't, of course, make it as a priority, of course, it's always something that we look at. It's always, okay, you look at the team and then you look at the diversity. And it's not only about, female, male diversity. It's about the age, the nationality as well. As I like to say, for the team, so we are already a female-led for Angel Hub and W Hub. So we make sure to recruit men as well, to keep gender diversity also in the team, but also in terms really of age and of nationality, not hiring only French people also, even if my co-founder is actually German, but, taking diversity as a whole, that is really important. On a personal basis, I support usually a lot of women-led priority or any type of organization as well. And also, I think what is very important is more also to help in terms of education for the young women, the young teenagers that we have, to make sure that they know that everything is possible and that they can do whatever they want. I also co-founded Women Who Code in Hong Kong. So really promoting diversity in tech and everything, but it's true that it's not a particular focus in terms of the investment thesis that we have, but I think there are other ways as well to help, which is when you see also we have invested into a robotic and AI company, and actually when we invested in them, it was a team of seven male, right? And at some point, we came to them and we were like, listen, So we like what you do and we will invest, but don't you think there is a problem? Because actually you are like, you're 7 guys, right? And they were like, listen, we are trying to recruit women, but actually we don't find any in terms of like robotic and AI. So it's very complicated. And they were like, yes, we know, and we want to do something about it. So, sometimes also they might need a little bit of help in terms of, finding more diversity and how to address it. And I think that's also where we can help. I think what is really important as well is in terms of our team to be diverse. So, when you look at the team, and it's not just the team as an overall, but so we have a team that is really part of the team that is specialized in terms of, the vetting and the due diligence of the company. So you need to make sure that this part of the team that is assessing the company, on the upfront channel is actually a diverse team composed of male and female, right? Because actually when you're looking at a company...
Quickly, I have to quickly interrupt you really quickly because Karen and I actually have known each other for the better part of 10 years. And actually, when I met her, Angel Hub was being incubated, and this one was actually in my tummy. My oldest just came out, she was actually just telling me just now, but I was like, you're on mute. And I said, what do we do with money? And she said, oh, mommy, what you and your friends always tell us to do is save, invest, impact investing, and philanthropy. So she actually has been by my side. She's a budding young pianist as well. We just represented Hong Kong in an international competition, and we got an award from the Polish consulate for the Chopin international competition. So, but I wanted to say that it's efforts like Karen, because Angel Hub, she started W Hub first. And what I like is when women realize it's community, because if you don't have a community, that can't feed into the other, the ecosystem. And you can't just have investors either. You have to have everything cross-pollinating each other. This is why, New Sheep Capital Family Office has been, not only supporting W Hub and Angel Hub. We're right now in the talks of getting them onto our investment committee and vice versa, because we've been, empowering women all the way. So I really love that, because she's never been someone to, push down other women to get ahead. And I just have to say that, because, some people
isn't it awesome? I don't even have to pitch myself, so I don't really know what to say.
No.
But
Rachel has her hand raised. I'm gonna let her
so,
come in.
So there are actually true support between women as well. Definitely not pushing each other down, but what I think is really important is to have diversity in terms of the vetting of the portfolio company, but also diversity in terms of the investor relationship team as well, right? That are actually talking to investors. And when we thought about it, we didn't really want to have something that would be dedicated to women investors. It made sense to talk to everybody, but then also to be able to talk to everybody with different type of people. And I think that's really important. So we really don't want to have this particular focus, but we always have on the back of our head. But the thing is that, you focus on the woman, the gender diversity part, you focus on the impact as well. I mean, there are so many things, to take into account when you are investing into a company. Sometimes it's very hard to just focus on a few things. So you want to take a lot of things into consideration as well.
Thank you, Karen. Rachel, you had your hand up if you want to make a statement.
Actually, it was just because I moved my hand and said it was please. But I mean, I do think that in terms of, though we're hearing this, there are not tons of women founders out there. And it is challenging. And women founders then trying to raise money, it is an uphill battle. When we looked at I look at the funders that we have across the board, there's not a lot also in the venture capital or private equity world. Even the impact investors, it's still quite it's not as diverse as it should be. So I think that one thing that we think is that it's really important actually to change that industry. And so, what we try to do is bring up this topic a lot and talk about it with our funders, as well as our majority shareholder is African Rainbow Capital, and our board representative is a woman. And we also have, had her represent us a lot so that we can get that word out on this. And she spoke at the Singapore Fintech Festival as an example of talking about this. So we do think this is very important. We in our capital raise that we just did, the fact that we have such strong sex disaggregated data made a big difference. Like we can answer any question that anyone will ever ask about the difference between how men use the accounts in South Africa compared to women, and the cohorts from each month we separate it for men and women. So when we're talking with funders, they can see that we can really understand who our customers are and that this is a specific issue. Additionally, we worked closely with CGAP, which is part of the World Bank, on a study to, they had done something on digital banks and covered 4 digital banks. And then they went deep with us to say, did we actually serve, do we actually serve women? Do we actually serve low income? Do we actually serve youth? And so that study actually played a major role in the capital raise that we just did, because we could answer not just, it wasn't just that we would talk about this, that we had another institution validate that we are actually going into the markets that we think are important.
Okay, so Jennifer, very quickly, because I want to move to the female founder in the group and talk to Deepika. So Jennifer, yes,
yeah,
just go
actually,
ahead.
I was actually going to ask Deepika of this, my question, because I think it feeds off of Rachel. Just as we see how women bank and engage in financial services and inclusion differently, I think it's the same as a founder, because I've been a female founder before too. One thing I've noticed, and I was going to ask Deepika if that's been her experience, is that as women, we don't like asking for help. We don't like raising money. We want to raise the bare minimum. We want to do it all ourselves. And then it's so funny because like sometimes when I'm looking at these women, like, originally for a playground, she wanted to raise 1 million. I'm like, why not 2? Why can't I do it for you in 3 weeks? Why can't I, and she's like, oh, I mean, I'm not a metaverse, I'm a community. I'm like, no, you're plugging in all these creators with each other. You're a multiverse. And then she was like, you think I can raise money? I'm like, of course you can raise money. First-time founder, she raised that capital within a month of chatting with me. And I was just like, this is, I mean, a lot of times I feel like it was women where we forget to put in our ask. Whereas sometimes I see men that I don't want to say mediocre founders, but sometimes they're like, oh, I have an idea. You should fund me because you're an investor. And I'm amazingly confident. And then they're like not confident. And then they're like, yeah, I've had like 5 flops, but I know I can do it. So you should believe in me too. And I'm like, where do they get this outsized confidence? So I'm going to toss it over to you, Deepika. Like, do you notice this sort of like?
No, absolutely. And I think there's this like message that floats around a lot, which is I wish amazing women had the confidence of mediocre men, which is so true, especially when it comes to fundraise, right? I'm not gonna like deny it. I think earlier on, if we knew we deserved a 5 million, we would be like, oh, but maybe not, but I can manage with like X amount. And you know what, we wouldn't draw like much of a salary. We're first time founders, we'll take a huge cut and we'll do all of that. But I think what really helped is our investors who we had on board. They really nudged us in the right direction, right? And when you are first time founders, some of this stuff is your data points are based on your friends who are founders or other founders you interact with, right? Which for the most part just so happens to be men, unfortunately, in India, right? So, oh, but he's from this college or he's from this university, so maybe he deserves that much more. But that's really changed. That's really changed for us. Also, as the women founders community in India is growing. Even now, if like a young woman comes up to me and if she's going with a ridiculously low ask for her startup, we're going to prompt her to like ask for what she deserves or even more, right? Because a man would have done it. As women, we cut ourselves short of far too much. And I know, and we've also, while Misbah was talking about it, right? Like, when she's talking about, what Oran is doing or what, there's Hefa, of course, right? There are so many amazing companies across the world doing similar or aligned businesses. I think what also, and we don't realize how much we're inspiring other founders, even with bases, right? We have young women who reach out to us, reach out cold, and they're like, oh, we're at an idea stage. And can you help us connect to like investors? Can you help us connect to folks who can, who can just really like support us going forward? we didn't really have too much of that earlier on. So now you want to go out of your way to just, yeah, there's no, all these numbers that we keep talking about, how we're underfunded and all of it, it is going to continue if we don't support each other, whether as investors or whether as just women in the ecosystem. If we don't push other women forward, either by setting the right example, that's not going to be enough if we don't help them, if they don't reach out to us. You don't have to go out of your way to find them and nurture them and mentor them. But if they're reaching out to us, the very least we can do is that make that connection, right? It takes about a minute.
Perfect. And Deepika, just to build on that, so what would you say were your biggest challenges or your top 3 challenges when raising capital for Basis?
I'm going to start with the fact that we're women, right? While the questions were not obvious to us or out there, I think they were very subtle in trying to judge where we were in terms of our life stage, when we're planning to have kids, what that could mean for the business. Are you building this business as a hobby, or is this really something that you're looking to stay invested for the next 10, 15, 20 years and watching it grow into very many things, right? And also a lot of our businesses or our ideas are judged on the basis of where men could have failed in similar businesses, right? Not really understanding that perhaps if a man was building something similar for women, he didn't understand those women that he's building for very well. And probably that's the reason that business didn't work, right? So we were often judged on the failures of others. So that's two reasons I want to say, and also being first-time entrepreneurs, right? While both of us have worked with startups, we worked with fintechs, etc. You're interpreted as being this person who was one of those folks leading a function, or one was leading product, one was leading like investments at a fintech, not really seeing the vision of how these forces come together, which somehow is very obvious for businesses led by men. With women, I don't know what lens they're looking at us with, but it just becomes really hard for them to to judge us the right way. But very recently, while we were in talks with an investor, and I think this amazing line came up, and this was very early into the call and just talking to us, and he was like, it would be really stupid of me to bet against Indian women, because Indian women just get shit done. And that was a refreshing change from after you've listened to 50 men who are judging you for things that you shouldn't be judged on. And I was, and literally his like investment decision was based on that, not really, oh, what are your metrics and this and that. I know you girls are going to figure it out, which is the kind of confidence we need.
Amazing. Thank you, Deepika. Misbah, you had your hand up, so I'm going to give you the floor now.
Thanks, Carol. I actually wanted to, empathize with what Deepika was saying, because as a female-founded fund, we kind of, we're in the same position, because we're also startup founders to a certain extent. We're also going to people and asking for money, and for us, we often get discounted by potential male LPs because they think we're soft. Versus our male counterparts. So I think that gives us empathy for female founders when we're looking at potentially investing in them. And so I can, I was just wanted to echo what Deepika was saying, that it's so challenging to raise money as women. And actually, it's great that we are in a position where we're like, we know exactly what we need to do with the money. We know where the market is. We know what we need to do. We've built this track record over the last 2 years. We want to hit the ground running, but just trust us because of what we've been able to show you that we've been able to do. So I think it's also putting ourselves in this position where, and again, Deepika and I, we have very similar cultures in India and Pakistan. People don't talk about themselves as much, and women even less so. So it's seen as uncouth if you're like talking too much about like what you've done and stuff. So I think as women, we need to push ourselves a little bit out of our comfort zone to really talk up that potential game, to help people get inspired about what we want to do as well. And so for us also, as a reminder, like, I mean, we would love to, our conversations with female LPs go very differently than with male LPs. The same as I'm sure Deepika's potential female investors ask very different questions than male investors do. So I just want to echo that that's something that, it goes through the value chain, and it's something where we can all help each other kind of like, change the game, hopefully, in the longer run.
Okay, so yes, go
I
ahead,
just want
Jennifer.
to add one thing, just on funding, right? And it's also, I don't know, I think you can follow these patterns, I think, which are good patterns for us to follow. For instance, we have a bunch of common investors with Oran, right? So either if they've spoken to us first or they've spoken to Halima and the team before, they're coming with a thesis where they believe a lot of this, right? So I think what we've also learned in terms of lessons for fundraise, you chase the investors where they've done something similar, they've shown that belief maybe in another geography. So I think that's like super helpful to us, rather than talking to folks who are going to let you down in conversations. I think that's also what we hear a lot, right? And you do see these patterns, it's easy to read them. Don't make life hard for yourselves. It's hard enough. Fundraise is really hard, but yeah, if we can make it easier for ourselves, let's just do that. Yeah.
Jennifer, you had a comment, then I want to jump to Rachel. Yes.
Of course, of course. I wanted a very quick one. So basically, one of the things that you guys mentioned before, and I wanted to just add it before we forgot, is that male founders sometimes outperform women founders, right? And then, women founders tend to outperform male founders. Diverse teams tend to outperform like non-diverse teams, because you don't want to have the groupthink herd mentality and someone being like, hey, wait, isn't there a hole? Wait, should we plug that hole? You don't want to have you don't want to miss out, basically, right? So it's important to have a holistic perspective on everything. But I also wanted to say that one of the reasons why women, not just the women entrepreneurs outperform the men, but women funders do as well. And the reason why is because we're underestimated. And that's actually an advantage. It's a huge advantage. And one thing that I used to joke around about with Karen all the time is that when we look at startups and when we look at people who are funding startups, because as a family office, sometimes we're LPs in different VC funds, is that people I see the VC funds, the emerging VC funds led by women, and some of the portfolio companies that we've directly invested in as my children. Your children will have different needs in different parts of life. Sometimes my child is, one of them is, she was no longer crawling, but she was crawling and then walking before. This older one, she's obviously running full speed. And so sometimes there's times when I think women also, when we tend to fund companies, we tend to take a more nurturing approach. We don't kind of spray and pray. We kind of say okay, look, what does it need? Does this company need intros? Does it need nurturing? Does it need, capital? Do they need some strategic advice now? Do they need this? Oh, okay, they're doing well. Let me get out of the way and not, distract them. So it's different. It depends on, I think we tend to do that. And the final thing I wanted to say is that, as women, we need to lean in more, because we're 51% of the population, except in places where, we're being selectively aborted or going missing, but we're the ones who actually give birth, or our eggs are giving birth to 100% of the population. So we need to make sure we're represented more everywhere. Let's pass it back to Carol, our moderator.
Thank you, Jennifer. Rachel, on to you. So obviously, congratulations on your most recent capital increase, and you did, touch upon it about having sex disaggregated data being a help. Do you think it was key, and what other key levers do you think you had to make that investment happen?
Well, I mean, what happens with, as a company develops, then it gets substantially easier each time to raise funding. So, when this funding was really easy after we did the capital raise that we announced in March, when Apis and the Go Conway family, and we announced the bank in the Philippines, that, suddenly it comes much easier. And let me tell you, after we announced that we had Tencent and CVC coming into time, the last week we've been inundated by groups saying, because suddenly you go from it's impossible to raise money to fear of missing out from investors who are like, oh, I need to be on the bandwagon of this institution. And, for us also, the new bank IPO, we think had a big impact as well, because suddenly there are patterns to the digital banking that didn't exist before. However, during the process of investing, it's quite, the subject, the discussions that we go through with the funders in the due diligence, all of our data, and the fact that we have sex disaggregated data, and when the depth of the sex disaggregated data plays a major role. So that's one thing that we think is important. And we are always presenting this. We include this in how we describe time. And so from the very, from whenever anyone interacts with us, they immediately, find out that we have, 54% women customers, that we are our retail, our model is retail integration, which again leads itself towards more women. So default, we're always going to be attracting more women, and that's very much a part of who we are, and we're proud of that. I mean, the other thing that we think is important is to select the funders, and you have to be careful with who you select. So at times when you're starting a business, it can be challenging. You think, okay, I'll just take anything just to have money. But our founder, and actually on a new system called Atoms by Apex, which is probably came out during the Singapore Fintech Festival, our founder, he actually posted something on this, which is really important even from day one, is to get more strategic angels. So it isn't just getting angels, but it's really important to have angels who are strategic and are going to help the business. And as we've been incubating this company called Tribe, which just at pre-seed, that one of the things that we think is really important, and we've spoken with that founder, is having the right anchors. So we are an anchor and there's another anchor, and having the right angels to fit with the business, and waiting for that. It will happen, but not giving in too early, just kind of out of fear, but waiting to have the right strategic angels from day one. And that's something I think that can be challenging, because as you're building a business, it can be really challenging in the very, very first couple of months to secure funding. But long term, when we look back and think about the original, some of the angels that came in for time in 2018 or 2019, most of those now are no longer part. They just weren't as strategic as the ones that we have now. And one of the lessons we've gotten from this, and we advise when we talk to other founders or young founders, because that's something that our two founders think is really important, is to actually support other founders, is just kind of stick with who you are and what you want, and don't panic that it won't happen, because you will raise the money. And that's why as well, we, not just as time, but our founders also support young founders often, so that they can continue with that message.
Thank you, Rachel. Karen, I want to talk to you, with the other hat. As a founder of a tech company, naturally you needed to raise capital. Did being a female founder present any obstacles, and did that make you make changes to how you run your own company today to avoid some of these challenges?
So actually, I think I'm going to be a touch of optimism here, because actually, and maybe it's because we are based in Hong Kong, and we were fundraising here in Hong Kong or in Europe. But it's true that we never felt that being two women was really an obstacle. Of course, out of the maybe 80 investors that we pitched into, we had one that asked us if we preferred our kids or a business. Of course, that always happens once. Another one asked us what our husbands were doing and whether they were committed to stay in the region. So, I mean, except, okay, maybe 2 or 3 that, were a little bit stupid, let's call it this way. But I'm sure we would have found other things about them that we wouldn't have liked anyway. But it's true that we never really felt it as a disadvantage. We never felt discriminated. So I think maybe in a way we were very lucky. Or maybe it was also a right timing. I think also it's a chance. It's really a chance for some women now in some countries, okay, and not everywhere. Obviously, we saw this in the discussion, but also because now people are really taking into account gender diversity when investing. Even VC, honestly, it starts to be really on their mind. They are looking at their stats. Their LPs are looking at their stats as well. So it's a chance also for women founder, to have a voice, because I'm not saying that all women business deserve to be funded. Some business are actually not good. It's a fact. So maybe the good thing is to develop some mentorships and all these kind of things into the ecosystem, because at the end, when you invest into a business, it's also because you believe in that business, right? But I think, yes, we were really lucky. I also saw when we were raising our fund that some people really liked the fact that we were 2 women founders. So I think right now for some of us, and maybe it's really only a small percentage, but it's great to see that it makes maybe a difference for them. I think, for us, when we see a lot of tech companies that are applying actually on the platform, I think where you can actually make a difference is when you see that, it's a strong woman-led company, to actually give them a voice to pitch. And maybe to say, okay, if it's a women-led company, okay, we will hear them out, because maybe, as we say before, they don't dare to ask for more money. They don't dare to ask for everything. Maybe they don't push themselves as much forward as men do. So, the least you can do is to give them more voice, but of course, I'm not going to fund a company just because they are women-led, but as we said, there are other ways to help. And I think, yes, we might have been very lucky with Carena, but maybe it's a beginning of a change. And I think that's a good signal. And when I see, strong network, just like tonight, it gives me actually a lot of hope. And I see more and more women in the space. And the aim is actually to have more women entrepreneurs, but also to have more women as a GP, to have more women working in a VC, to have more women actually in engineering school, to have more women in finance. And that's the only way that we will come. My dream is to, so we raised another round as well. But my dream is, when I raise a round, not to have a title saying, oh, a company led by 2 women led a round, right? And my dream is more to have like, oh, there is an awesome fintech company that just raised the round. That, to have the emphasis actually more on my business than myself. And I think that the day I will have an interview where people will not ask me how I deal with managing my family, my kids, how I feel for being a woman, the day I will not have these questions, I will be so happy as well. So slowly we are building to get there. We have great examples here tonight as well. And it makes me very optimistic.
Good. Thank you. Optimism is always welcome. Yes, Jennifer, very quickly. And I have a question and I want to open to the floor because we have questions coming in. Yes.
Oh, sure. I love what Karen's just said about like when it gets beyond, I think we can get beyond the gender lens when people stop describing it as such. Even by ourselves, like I actually remember when the term girl boss came about, I really hated it because it's like, should you care whether I'm a female entrepreneur or female investor? And then people were like, oh, what are you? I was like, I'm a multi-hyphenate. I'm going to be on a TV show and shooting a movie next summer, possibly, knock wood, right? And I'm like, why do we have to keep defining ourselves by other things? And I remember one of the things, and I spoke about it at the conference that Angel Hub, the SIS conference 2 weeks ago. And I actually, afterwards, people were like, oh, can you let me know how you, I mean, one of the reasons why I even defined ourselves as a family office is everyone thought we were a VC fund. They didn't realize that I was trying to invest my own exit money in the past, or that I was trying to pay it forward in some way. And then we had to keep defining ourselves. And then finally, when my friend said, hey, you know what? Been managing your money for a while. Look at our performance year to date. And I was just like, oh my gosh, it's this, by the way, guys. I think it speaks for itself. Like all the other hedge fund managers I know are like up 4 to 6%. This is like crazy, right? And then someone said, oh, wow, what's his name? What's your trader's name? And I was like, it's my best friend. I wouldn't have anyone else manage my money. And we're going to start, they're like, oh, wow, it's amazing. 2 women starting a hedge fund. And I'm like, that shouldn't be amazing. Like her performance, just like how Angel Hub is, that performance should speak for itself. The track record should speak for itself. The fact that we happen to be women should not be a surprise. So I'm giving back to you, Carol, but I'm just very passionate about that.
But
Thank you.
By the way, I just wanted to say that also I'm lucky because I'm in Hong Kong, but it's great that we have people like Mishba that are like pushing more women entrepreneurs in countries that might deserve another push, right? So we are all in different stage, and every area that we work needs also different type of push as well. But it's great to see that we can complement each other as well.
I wanted to quickly answer Inez's question too about the paying it forward, because what I wanted to say is that every time I invest in a woman entrepreneur or a female funder, I make her make a promise. If you make it, you have to turn around and pay it forward. You need to invest in other women. You can't just like sit there and eat bonbons about it. You need to go and pollinate. So and then about the connections to female founders. I'd love to. Sometimes I've actually gotten a lot of bullying because sometimes I don't have time to answer all my messages. Like on my LinkedIn, I have some like death threats even. And like it really hurts my feelings because I actually don't have time to look at the 10,000 unread messages sometimes. I'm trying my best. I think we all are. So sometimes like, that's another reason why I tell people like, I'm not a VC. I'm actually just an angel investor, just like you guys all are, right? So I want, my final thing is just like, we're women, we should be helping each other. Let's go easy on each other just because we try to help each other. The other failing I have is we try to sometimes spread ourselves too thin and think of ourselves last. So after I had my second kid, I was actually in a coma for 3 weeks and I barely survived. So a lot of people thought like, oh, and people were like, oh, she's like, she's ignoring me, she's this, she's that, she just had an IPO, why is she not answering? And then like 6 months later, after I learned to like walk and eat and do other things again, I didn't feel like I had to explain myself, so I just want to also emphasize to all of us here, you have to take care of yourself first too, because,
Definitely. And
yeah,
as women, we always forget that. We always put ourselves last. So thank you for that, Jenny. Deepika, I have a question for you as a female founder. We keep talking about what investors look for in fintechs. What do fintechs look for in investors?
I think to start with a shared vision, right? And you know this really early on, especially now that we've spoken to over 80 investors, very early on to the conversation, whether they have a shared vision or not. And while investors are looking at us for returns and of course, like looking to build their portfolios with us for the future, we also look at how much they can help us going forward, right? Whether it's small stuff like hiring or it's our next round of funding, how hands-on they can be. And surprisingly, at least for us so far, we found that the investor outside of India are a lot more supportive, a lot more responsive, a lot more hands-on. I don't know whether it's also the cultural differences that come into play when you're fundraising from your home country and outside. I think a lot of times things are different. Also realizing if you're building for women's, if it's not D2C, for the most part, a lot of these businesses are not obvious, right? Even for us, we get ridiculous questions like, oh, why aren't women flocking to the existing fintechs in India? The current fintechs in India, I think the women like investors or savers there are 15 to 22%. And there also, I think the proxy is probably a husband or a brother or a partner or father managing the accounts for them. And like Misbah was referring to Pakistan, very similarly, 50% of our population here is women. There is no reason to not have products, especially financial service products for women, right? But this is going to take time to build. It's not going to be instant gratification for investors. There have been products in the US for a while. There have been various products there. It's taken time there. You can't compare us to a 10 or 15-year-old company in the West. And so we do need investors, or in general, I think any business needs investors who are patient and invested in the vision beyond, oh, this is my money and this is the kind of exit or return I'm looking for. And I think touchwood, we've been fortunate so far with having exactly these kind of investors on board.
Amazing. I want to take one of the questions from Paloma, and I think it's very, very important. Is there a database of female funders or investors and accelerators that people can, refer to if they want to really find a woman investor as a fintech? Is there a list or a directory somewhere? Rachel, do you have an idea?
I mean, I actually think that there's more of that in the US. I think it's easier to find things like that in the US or Europe, but less. And in fact, when I talk to female founders, that they're often, that people say to them, if angels, the big angel communities are much more US, Europe than in Asia. So I don't think, as far as I know, in Asia, there's not that list. And in different, in Hong Kong and Singapore are kind of more angels, and there's lots and lots of family offices, of course. In Singapore, there's new legislation for that. But there is not a sense of kind of an easy way to go find angels. Though recently I met a woman and she's actually been an angel to 100 companies out of Singapore. So once you find them, they're actually, you can see that they're quite active. It just is a little, you have to kind of ask around to find these people.
Okay, so why don't we make a commitment if Jennifer, Karen, and Misbah can give us like lists of who they know from their friends or their communities of who are women investors and angels, and we put them in a list and we share with all of you guys here. We can start our own directory and start building from there. And I guess referrals bring referrals, and we know that women refer. So I think we can create that list and make it grow and grow and grow and really support the community there. I have a question from Buhle. Hi, Buhle. So Buhle is CEO of Jumo, and her question is, one of the issues that was raised earlier is that women founders are more risk averse or conservative in their projections. Is this actually supported by data? So maybe Misbah, if you have comparison between your female-led and regular portfolio.
To be honest, Carol, I haven't seen that firsthand. I'll be really honest. I think for us, the way we've chosen our female founders, they're just as visionary, just as hardworking, just as aggressive. I don't like using the word aggressive because there's a bit of a toxic masculinity attached to it. But I definitely think in terms of just pushing themselves and having that big vision. And that's why we've chosen them, right? Because I think that there is that. There are some founders, obviously, that require a bit of hand-holding, that have where there's an opportunity to help them step out of their comfort zone and maybe push a little bit more. And that's where our sister company that does the accelerator programs and is working with female founders, helping them get investment ready, is really helping the ecosystem more broadly do that. So I do think there's a pattern. I mean, the other thing that we've seen is also, in a lot of cases in Pakistan, we've seen women-led businesses be less sort of venture type businesses. So they may be growth, there may be a lot of growth potential, but they're lifestyle businesses. They may be craft based, or they may be, cooking from home and sort of having a home chef business or whatever. So I think those are easier for women to start from. And I don't know if ambition is something that comes into it, but definitely access is a part of it. I think being able to manage a lot of different conflicting demands on your time in a very patriarchal society like ours is part of it. They're very traditional roles that women are expected to fulfill in terms of family and home. And so they're able to find pockets of time to do these sort of quote unquote smaller businesses. And I think for us, at least on the venture side, what the women that we've invested in are at par, if not better, than the men. So I haven't really seen that, but I understand from a broader market perspective, definitely we see women sort of being underestimating themselves, but also being a little conservative in terms of how they're projecting forward. And that's where ecosystem work is very important. And role models. I think you need mentors, you need role models, you need to be able to see what there is to aspire towards, so that you can then, put your sights on something which you could then try and achieve as well.
And I think role models is definitely one of the things that can answer Inez's question about what can be done to stimulate more interest from women to become female fintech founders. And if you have anything beyond role models, please, by all means, the floor is yours. So anyone to share what we can do to get more female founders in the space, to inspire them. Yes, Jen.
Sorry, I wanted to quickly address something about what Misbah just said about, so basically you can't invest in like sophisticated tech if the infrastructure is not there. So sometimes when you have to like look for women founders, you can't say like, oh, well, this Pakistani woman is not doing deep tech and AI. Sometimes it's like something that's serving a basic economy, serving a basic need. So sometimes when we look at impactful tech, technology is basically at its source. It's when let's say monkeys or apes started learning to use a stick. That's technology, right? Technology is stuff that enables you to have a better way of living, better performance. It's just improving life. Right. So I think like we need to cut some of these women some slack, because sometimes like they're like, oh, this woman in Yemen. I mean, like I just saw the stats on like how many women have a bank account. Like, are you going to expect them to be like, oh yes, you have to let me. You mean if you can't, like, it was actually like when we were looking at some deals in Africa, I said before we look at those deals, we need to fund some PPE factories so that they can keep themselves safe. Like, let's not even talk about the logistics and shipping. are there enough, like, is there enough PPE out there to like keep people safe, right? Like it's, I mean, it's all about investing in fundamentals. And I think at the end of the day, as long as we're looking at women who are addressing real needs, that is finding the right founders. So really love what you said.
But there's,
Rachel, yes,
I mean, as
go ahead.
well as founders, I think there's also kind of a need to build up and to get more women angels. So I think that before hearing about kind of angels, that there's an assumption that an angel is providing, you know, a significant amount of money. But angel investors can be just doing, you know, it's still a lot of money to a lot of people, but 50,000 US. You know, we have angel investors still who want to, in some ways, still participate in time, and it may be that amount. So, but what is interesting is that when you talk with people, that there's kind of a lack of understanding of what it is to be an angel investor and how it can be quite small. And so I think as well as kind of building up women founders, it's also about kind of getting women to take up the next step in terms of being a small angel investor.
So one of the VC funds we invested in, one of the reasons why I did is because she's built up a network of over 10,000 angel investors. It's called SoGal, Pocket Sun and SoGal. And the minimum amount actually to invest in some of the deals is 1,500 US. So one of the reasons why sometimes I think it's more important too, like I don't like to lead rounds. I actually like to make room for my friends. So I'll sometimes even hold down the allocation and split off for my friends. Or I like to invest together. I want more of us at the table. So like, you know, right now for like Playground, the minimum check size was 50,000. I got a couple of our junior associates / interns in for less than 5,000 US. Right. So I think it's about the act of enabling people to take that jump and that leap. It's not about the amounts, what Rachel just said. It's really not about the amount.
So I'm really conscious of time. We have exactly 3 minutes to close the session. What I wanted to do is two things. One, Bule, you had your hand up.
Going for another half hour.
I wish. I wish. I really wish, but it's Friday night for all of you people. So I don't want to do that. Bule, you had your hand up. I want to make sure I give you a chance to make your statement.
Thank you so much. So the reason I asked that question, Carol, about the risk thing is that, you know, it seems to me that I've heard it a number of times, and I've wondered if it's not a dangerous narrative for us to allow to perpetuate. And one of the things is what I've seen in terms of risk is that, you know, at a fundamental level, a lot of times women are starting in a very different position. So in fact, they are risking more. So, you know, if you think about what it takes for often, you know, female founders are, you know, have already worked very hard to get themselves into C-suite positions, glass cliffs, glass ceilings, all of the things, right? And so when they go out on their own, they already have so much more at stake and often just do not have a safety net, right, when they go out. And so, so that's the first thing is I feel that perhaps even the way in which we are thinking about risk taking is maybe unfair. And then the second thing is that when I actually look at women and how women behave when it comes to finance, it seems to me that in fact they are more willing to take risk and try new things. You know, so if we look at ESG investing, we're seeing that, you know, when you look at it as a proportion of people who are participating in investing, women are leading the charge as far as that's concerned. When new things like crowd or community type of based investments are introduced, women are willing to try those things out. And so, and even, you know, many decisions which women make, like taking the risk of leaving the workforce for a while to look after a child and trusting that you'll be able to get back in, it seems to me that in fact, women, as long as a risk aligns to their values, they're actually just as keen to take risks, and perhaps just the lens through which we've looked at it with is somewhat unfair, and I worry sometimes that, you know, women might hear some of this said so often that we start to actually believe that, and I don't believe that we are risk averse. I think in fact we do have a great appetite for risk under the right circumstances. So yeah, that's why I just wanted to put that out.
Thank you, Bule. And what I want to do is maybe, add to it what Paloma was saying, is that maybe it's not right to measure it, from being risk averse, but really looking at the situation from making more impact with social value returns in terms of measurement. I am conscious of time. We are, yes, and Inez is saying risk aware is more correct than risk averse. We have also tended to make sure that those terms are now adopted and changed in people's thinking, because averse is quite a strong word to put out there, and we know that aware is more correct. What I want to do is I want to thank my panelists. It's been an amazing honor to moderate this session. Very insightful, very inspiring. What I want to say is maybe throw a question out there, food for thought for your weekend. The chicken and egg question. Do you think the effort to make the fintech ecosystem become more focused on the female economy should actually be fintech-led or investor-led? Which one should actually make the effort first? That's food for thought for you. Would love to maybe have another session in 2022 to discuss that with all of you with me. And with this, I want to thank again my panelists, my crowd, for being here, for taking the time off on a Friday night, halfway through December, a week before the holidays, to really spend the time with us and listen to this conversation. Our next FinTech Friday is going to be in February 2022. We will be sending the details in due time, so please keep checking your emails. I hope you found the session valuable. I wish you all a great rest of the day, a great weekend, and a wonderful holiday season.
Carol, I have one request. We have to do a part. I feel like I've only just scratched the tip of the iceberg with these amazing panelists. I am so sorry because I thought this was a 1.5 hour. I really apologize because
no worries.
Yeah, my calendar has 2 settings, I guess, on it apparently. You guys are absolutely amazing. Maybe Carol, do you mind if we do like a popcorn style, maybe like one phrase tip for like?
Go ahead. Go ahead. And then I'll go to Deepika because she has to jump off. Maybe we start with Deepika.
Yeah, let's Deepika. Maybe your
one advice. One advice to fintech founders, investors, whoever you want. One advice.
I think for fintech founders, because I can speak mostly from this side, I'm not going to give tips and advice to folks who think slightly differently, maybe. But I think don't underestimate yourself. I did that I think our imposter syndrome is so strong. It's also very easy to get rid of if you make a very active effort to work with it. I think I've reached a very good relationship with myself. I think more than anything else, thinking of investors, etc., just build on a relationship with yourself and understand yourself and your potential a lot better. I think that's the basic thing I think each one of us can do before trying to change someone else or trying to achieve like this, massive change for other women.
Perfect. Thank you. Jen, you want to go ahead next?
Sure. So I want to talk more about that lead by example. So one of the reasons why I decided eventually to do family office is because I'm teaching my kids that it's possible. And one of the things I really hate is when people are like, "Oh, the family office, is it your father's or is it your husband's or who?" It's ours. It's mine. And then I love what Deepika said about the imposter syndrome, because the only way we can get rid of that imposter syndrome is by leaning in and feeling strong about our own identities and feeling true to ourselves, that we don't need to project images to make other people happy, that we have to find our own self-fulfillment. And I'm still a work in progress, kind of working towards that. I'll be the first to admit it. But I also want to say that one tangible thing we can all do as fintechs, as founders and investors, is put more women on boards. I feel like that's where the glass ceiling is. There's, I think, something like less than a single-digit % of women make up boards. I just did some of you guys in a fintech association in Hong Kong. I took a picture and I'm the only woman in like 12 men. And I just only stopped by quickly to just say hi. And it's sad, we need to lean in more. Like there were not enough women in tech before. There were not enough women founders before. There were not enough women investors before. Now there are not enough women on boards. There are not enough women in crypto. There are not enough women in fintech. So just go ahead and charge in. We'll all be cheering and let you in.
Great. Then we changed lean in to become charge in. Rachel.
I guess for female founders, I think it's really important you know, when you're picking who you're going to have in terms of your funders and who you're raising money for, because it's not just one, you don't just raise the money and then not talk to them. It's a very intense relationship before, during the actual capital raise, but even more so afterwards. So really think carefully as to who you want to have working with you, and know that that's going to be a very deep and long relationship.
Thank you. Karen?
I would say it's not only about the founders, it's about a team. So be surrounded by a diverse crowd of people that can actually push you up. I think that's one of the most important advice I could give to any entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Beautiful. And then we close with Ms. Wah's statement. No pressure on your shoulders. You're just closing the whole year's, the whole session.
Look, I will echo what everybody said. I think all of this, and I think just own it. We have such power being women. We're so multifaceted. We just need to own that we bring so much more to the table, and then just go with that. So, you know, bring other women up, you know, reach out to people that can help you, but just own it, own who you are, and put your best foot forward. And we're all here to support each other. We'll get there. We're going to change everything.
Sorry, I have one more ask. Let's put on gallery mode. Can everyone who is still here show your face? And then we can have a collage of all us women supporting each other. And if you're okay with it, I'll tag you on social media, or I'll just have it up and you can message me in, because I'm a little bit of a social media maven. Everyone have a seat at the table, make yourself visible.
There we go.
Yeah.
Beautiful women.
Thank you for representing and being present. I think half of it is showing up. Smile.
Thank you.
Great. Oh, sorry. I saw a few more of you guys. Okay. Smile in.
I got a screenshot for you, Jen.
Oh, great. Thanks, Carol.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you, everyone, for being with us. It's been a great session. Great to see. The only problem with now, if you look at this, we're all women at the table talking about this challenge.
That's not a problem.
Actually, we have one man. Actually, we have one man.
Yay!
It's great. It's great.
Yeah, Mushir is here. Hi, Mushir.
Exactly. And it's great that you brought it up, because actually, you know what? If we only target half of the population to solve a problem, I think we are not going to go very far. So it's great also to have men that support the cause, and there are a lot that actually do.
Yeah,
So
Mushir's
yes.
a great supporter and a great fighter for the female economy.
We did the part 2 with co-ed, and then I think it was really great that we did all women this time, because sometimes I feel safer amongst other women being vulnerable. And I love what Karen said, that we do have a man present. So
definitely.
Yeah, thank you.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Happy holidays, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Happy
Bye, guys.
holidays.
Bye.
Bye.